All right, so we are, if you're just with us this evening, we're in our summer book study, and we are in a book entitled Expository Listening. Expository Listening, and what we've been learning very specifically are recognizing the responsibility that we as the hearer have when it comes to God's Word. That God's Word is an amazing gift, that we have been given the literal mind of God. That's the way in which he describes this. That people say to me all the time, if I knew God's will, I would do it. Well, we do know God's will. He's very specific, very clear, and he's given it to us so that we might know him. And we've been looking through understanding how better that we can utilize the time that we gather. I would hate, on my part, for you all to give up your Wednesday night or your Sunday morning to come in and gather and desire to be taught God's Word, and for there to be a lack of that. There should be a primacy of the preaching of God's Word that we experience within God's family, within the gathering of the body of Christ. And so I hope and pray each week and pursue after being prepared to be able to do that. But the flip side is how can you be better prepared? How can you be more fully able to receive as much as possible from the message? From a sermon. And it's funny because one of the things that we've looked at, and we'll touch on this again tonight, we're going to be in chapter 3 of the book, but one of the things that we looked at is last week the author in chapter 2 really walked through the different types of soil that receive the seed or God's Word, and walk through the ways in which that's accomplished. And I said this last week, or 2 weeks ago, actually we had a missionary last week. Last time we were in the study, I said that if you don't desire to produce fruit, you are going to hate chapter 3. Because chapter 3 is all about means that you can better produce fruit in your life. The fruit of Christianity, the fruit of faith, the things that we've been looking at on Sunday morning and understanding. Chapter 3 is for those who say, I want to experience. I want to produce. I want to be all that God himself has called and created and redeemed me to be. And so that's what chapter 3 is seeking to accomplish. That's what it's giving us, some super practical components. But on the flip side of that, there seems to be a trend whereby church is seen as a means, the sermon is seen simply as a means of there's a couple different viewpoints. One is, well, that's just what we do. There are people in this room who have probably listened to easily more than 10,000 sermons in their life. More than 10,000 sermons. And when you do something 10,000 times, it can easily become rote. That what you just do because that's what you do. And it's not fresh. It's not weekly. It's just something that becomes a part of your life. It's like eating meals and other things versus coming to a very nice restaurant for your anniversary. And that's not how we should see church. That's not how we should view God's Word in the sermon surrounding it. And so this is about us understanding more fully how to utilize what we're already giving. Right? The only people hearing these words are the ones who are giving of their time to come and hear these words. And so how can we better utilize this? And so I really want you to understand. And if you haven't figured it out yet, I'm really building up all this encouragement for you because chapter 3 hurts. Chapter 3 is one of those chapters, and there's multiple places. There are times, even when preaching on a Sunday morning, where I feel like, man, none of us can say amen. We need to all say, oh me. This is one of those places because it's going to confront some area of your life. And this is what I want you to understand. This is not about confronting you. It's not about making you feel bad. This is for those who say, I want to most fully experience what God has for me. I want to know to the fullest extent His provision, His generosity, His kindness and goodness. I want to be one who serves Him with my whole heart, and I want my life to matter for the kingdom. For people who say those kind of things, this chapter is just a means of teaching you how to better do that. And so I'm just going to jump right in with it. I do want to start at the beginning and review it since we had last week off. I'll begin with the quote from a man known as the Prince of Preachers. He lived and died in the 1800s. His name was Charles Spurgeon. He preached at that time to the largest congregation in the world. They're in London, England. And this is what he says in regards to this, what we're studying tonight. He says, "We are told that men ought not to preach without preparation. Granted, but we add, men ought not to hear without preparation. For which do you think needs the most preparation, the sower or the ground? I would have the sower come with clean hands, but I would have the ground well plowed and harrowed, well turned over, and the clods broken before the seed comes in. It seems to me that there is more preparation needed by the ground than by the sower, more by the hearer than by the preacher." And I would just say that is an absolute contradiction to the mindset of the majority of people who attend a church on a Sunday morning. It's an absolute contradiction. I did not grow up with that mindset. Honestly, looking back and recognizing that I was an unbeliever, but the mindset that I had attending church was, he's sure lucky I'm here today, and he better do a good job, because I took my time to show up today. Now, I would have never said that, but truly, that's how I felt. If he better say this, or he better do this, or the church better be friendly, or this better happen, or that better happen. And I looked at church as though it was all about me. And I'm afraid that creeps in so easily to our thinking. So, chapter 3, this whole book is about thinking otherwise. And chapter 3 are the practical means to do that. And so he walks through just some of the different biblical references to this. On page 36, he speaks in terms, and again, farming terminology. Remember, this is an agricultural society throughout the whole time of the authorship of Scripture. And so there's a lot of farming references. So if you're not sure what things like harrowing means, or plowing, or sowing the seed, or those things, just ask afterwards. But they're farming terms of how to plant a field to produce some type of a harvest for the farmer. And at the top of page 36, it says this, in Jeremiah 4:3, God speaking to his people Israel says, "Break up your fallow ground, and do not sow among thorns." In Hosea chapter 10 and verse 12, he says again, "Break up your fallow ground, for it is time to seek the Lord until he comes to rain righteousness on you." Now, this was not a command from the Lord on how to plant your field. This was not telling his people Israel, the Hebrew children, he was not saying, you guys need to get better at this whole farming thing. No, very specifically, it's a spiritual illustration. And it says this, to understand most fully, listen to what fallow ground represents, according to the author. Fallow ground referred to land that had been plowed but not seeded for one or more growing seasons, either to allow weeds to die off or to make the soil richer. It was uncultivated, unused, and unproductive at the time. As a result, it had become hard and useless. Before anything could be planted, it needed to be broken up and softened and made ready to receive the seed. The exhortation, "break up your fallow ground," summarizes the appeal by the prophets of Israel throughout her history. And if you read the Old Testament, you see this constantly. Israel listens for a season, they produce, they're blessed, those things. Then they stop, and they start chasing after false idols and multiple other things. Judgment comes upon them. They cry out to the Lord again. It's just this continual pattern. God sends prophets to warn them. It's coming. Stop it. Start doing these things. Sometimes they listened. Most often they did not. And so this is the picture. And he says this, and I think this is super important for us to understand. All that leads up to this statement in the middle of page 36. He says, "We," meaning you and I, "may go through periods where we learn very little and change very little. That's when we know that our hearts are in need of harrowing." That the field of our heart has become hardened. It might be a useful, productive field, but through lack of use or a variety of other things, it has become hardened. And you'll know that when you realize that you've heard 300 sermons and you've read 12 books of the Bible, and your life looks exactly the same after the fact as it did before the fact. And so this is a good encouragement. Again, this is for we who are putting the time in to get the most out of what it is that we're already doing. On the next page, I want to focus on this just for a moment. In the middle of page 37, it says, no matter how many times our heart might be pricked by the word of God, we seem unfazed. Just like when we poke a callus with a needle, the more we sin, the more calloused or hardened our heart becomes to God's word. These are major things, red flags to understand. If the word of God is falling on your heart and it's not producing anything, there's some things we need to start looking for. Is it because you are not using that field properly? Is it an unused field, meaning possibly you're someone who doesn't go and hear the preaching of the word, who doesn't study regularly? It could be something of that nature, or it could be sin. Sin in the camp will destroy any and all goodness from the Lord in your life. That's just the reality, and we're going to see some more of that this evening. He says this, in this chapter, I want to suggest some things you can do to prepare your heart for the ministry of God's word. These are the sharp discs of the harrow or the plow, which are designed to open your heart for the entrance of the word that gives light. And I would say this, these are wonderful suggestions. What we're going to look at in each of these points tonight, they are suggestions. They are not commands from God's word. However, these are the means by which we're suggesting to you ways that you can fulfill what is the absolute command of God's word, to be a doer of the word, not simply a hearer. To take in God's word that you might know his will and not be conformed to this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind through the study and teaching of the word of God, so that you might know his will. Right? That's the big question. People tell me all the time, well, if I just knew God's will for me in this, that's what I would do. Okay, well, let's get to work and figure that out. Well, no, I expect he's just going to give me a dream tonight. God's just going to open some door. And I'm like, Satan opens doors too. Right? There's not always a guarantee that because a door is open that you ought to just go tramping right through it. That might be a really bad door for you to go through. And so there's all kinds of things that we want to have discernment and clarity. And the only way that we receive that is through God's word. And so with that, we're going to start, again, I covered these 2 weeks ago, but I'm just going to hit on them quickly. The first suggestion, he says, read and meditate on God's word every day, because reading the word on a daily basis will develop in you a healthy appetite for God's word. Here's something I would just simply say. When someone comes out of a season where they've been possibly on a shipwreck or other things and they're starved, and they haven't had much water, they say, and I haven't experienced this, but they say the absolute worst possible thing that person can do is eat a big meal or even drink a lot of water, because their body, through dehydration and through malnourishment and other things, it is not equipped to take that in. And the point the author's making kind of ties right in with that. Listen, if you show up every Sunday, two things are going to happen if that's the only time that you're being fed what your spirit needs, which is the word of God. Two things are going to happen. One is it's going to be overwhelming to you. And two, you're going to be a malnourished person no matter how much you're fed on Sunday. The example I always use is I remember the football team, the young men, they were on the football team. Those guys used to go to Golden Corral, the whole team. They would drive to Fort Pierce to Golden Corral. And I know that those poor people at Golden Corral dreaded to see that day. I mean, the whole team would roll up there, and I don't know, I guarantee they lost money that day. And the football team would they would leave, and they had a name for it. They called it the itis. And the itis meant that you were so miserable, they had to literally sit in the parking lot because they couldn't get in their car to drive home. I mean, literally. And here's the point I'm making. If you treat God's word that way, where you go and buffet style every Sunday, gorge yourself, and then eat nothing until the following Sunday, picture that in your life. If I went to Golden Corral and literally ate a Thanksgiving feast every Sunday until I couldn't fit an olive down, but then did nothing to continue to eat nothing until the next Sunday, how healthy would my physical body be? Well, in the same way, our spiritual soul, the spirit within us that's been made alive by Christ's righteousness and hungers and thirsts now for more of that righteousness that gave it life as it was dead in its trespasses and sins. That spirit within us, man, it's hungry. It's thirsty. And we need to be feeding it regularly. Don't show up on a Sunday morning thinking, I'm going to take in a rich meal. It's liable to make you sick. Even where at that time, man, I don't feel great from this. I don't feel really good after that meal I just had. I'm just going to avoid that place for a while. And so there should be a measure whereby you are chewing on God's word, studying, meditating, thinking deeply upon it throughout. He says that Bible reading is an appetizer that cultivates a spiritual appetite for the Sunday sermon. On page 39, he gives 3 or 4 basic things I think that are really great questions to ask. It comes from the text in 2 Timothy 3:16, which says that Scripture is useful for 4 things. You know the passage, all Scripture is breathed out by God and profitable or useful. And it says these 4 things: for teaching, for reproof, for correction, and for training in righteousness. And he gives us these questions. Ask yourself the following 4 questions every time you read the Bible. Let me just say this. I'm afraid that it creeps into our thinking in the mundane, rote traditions and realities of things like Bible study, that we see it as a box that needs checked each day. I want to submit to you that the way in which we should see God's Word as God's children is as the necessary food and drink that we have to get through. I promise you, if you come to a place where you found yourself bored with eating a meal, take a day off and see how excited you'll be for breakfast tomorrow. Right? There's a measure whereby what I want you to understand about God's Word is this. I don't study God's Word because I'm really afraid that God's going to be upset with me because I missed today. I don't want to be legalistic. I don't want to be box checking in it. I study God's Word because I believe it contains the realities for the life that I'm living. And I believe with all my heart that if I don't know what God desires for me today, I will mess it up and suffer the consequences in my own strength and wisdom. I believe that. And so I have to go to God's Word, or else I feel like I'm leaving my house without getting dressed. I have to go to God's Word, or else I feel like I have missed out. So I don't want to have a legalistic, hey, you are a abject sinner if you didn't read God's Word today. I want us to instead develop a mindset of, I need God's Word. God's Word is good. God's Word is necessary for my life, because left to my own devices, and here's just the thing, just so you understand that it doesn't mean we're all just willfully ignorant. Left to our own devices, we tend to not get it right. Well, let me tell you why. Ain't none of you in this room, myself included, can tell me or you what tomorrow holds for you or for I. We can make our plans. We can try and pursue those plans. We can check the weather. We can check our schedule. But none of us have the ability to know, yet there is one who does know. And more than that, he not only knows, but he's working all things together for good in tomorrow. He knows the end from the beginning. And so when I think of God's Word, I think of access to the one who holds tomorrow. When I think of prayer, I think of access to the one who holds tomorrow. I don't want you to take from this study, well, I just need to wake up every morning and make sure I read a chapter of Proverbs and one of Psalms. That's okay if that's your reading plan, but I want your mindset in regards to that plan to be, what do you have for me today, Lord? What is it that I can put on my armor, put on my clothing for the day that's coming? Because I don't know what it holds. But Lord, you do, and your word is good, and all of it is profitable, and all of it will be doing work in my life. Hey, we've got a couple of folks in here right now who are studying Ecclesiastes, and another one who's studying Ezekiel. Let me just say, Ezekiel is a daunting book, right? Right now, Miss Barb, what are you teaching our children through on Sunday mornings? Leviticus. The Day of Atonement, which is so important. However, if you've ever read Leviticus, it can become that which is, but if you're practicing these things rightly and utilizing the resources God's given. The person who's studying Ezekiel, this is terrifying to me, because Ezekiel, there are some mysteries that God says, no, these aren't for you to know right now. And Ezekiel seems to have a lot of those. But I get emails on a semi-regular basis of, hey, I'm kind of stuck on this. Pastor, can you help me with this? Absolutely. Man, I love that. I love that. Again, it's a little daunting because it's in Ezekiel. I'm like, can't you study like Matthew or something? Ezekiel? You're going to have a lot of questions. I could have told you that ahead of time. But you see what I'm saying? God's made provision through that. I, as your pastor, serve at your pleasure in this arena anyhow. In this arena of providing and studying and being able to read and meditate and study deeply upon God's Word through training, through time. You guys have to go oftentimes and care for babies and earn a paycheck. I earn my paycheck, if you can call it that. I earn my bills being paid through study of God's Word and service to His people. So please, now watch, this week my emails are going to blow up and I'm not going to get anything else done. But it's super important, and I want us to develop this mindset around God's Word. Not that it's a box to be checked, but that it's a pair of pants to put on. Right? You would always think twice before you would ever, I don't care. Listen, would anyone be like, I mean, think about this. Would anyone be like in the morning, you wake up late, things are running behind, and you're like, I just got to get to my meeting, and I'm just not going to put pants on because I don't have time. I mean, no, right? We would be late so that we could have pants on when we went to whatever, a doctor's appointment. Even if you got to take them off once you get there, it don't matter. You're going to put them on to get there. Start seeing God's Word in that way, as a necessity that you desire, not as a box that you feel obligated to check. And it will change your life in regards to these things. All right, don't want to rant. Going back to the 4 questions. The first one is, what did I learn? This is a good meditation for you to think on when you've read something. Well, what did I learn from this? Secondly, that's teaching, by the way. Where do I fall short? Not only what did I learn, but now what do I do because of what I've learned? That's reproof. What do I need to do about it? That's correction. So now putting into action, okay, I see that I'm not doing this well, or I am doing this and I shouldn't be doing this. Correction is now I'm correcting those things in my life. And then finally, how can I make this a consistent part of my life? Training. People say all the time, it takes like 7 days to develop a habit. Right? Is it more than that? What is it? 21? Okay. 7 times 3 days to develop a habit. Guys, think of some of the things that you do each week and you don't even know why. How cool would it be if this could become just a part of your life? And it's not that hard in the sense of just actually doing it, but it is hard because we don't see this rightly, because we live in a time when God's Word is man, in priority of things, it comes way down here. Everything in the world around us is opposing, it seems like, God's Word. You don't really need God's Word, you can do this. You don't really need God's Word, you can do that. You can disobey God's Word, but just make it up on the backside. It's not how life works, but it's how it's being presented. The next one, because I'm supposed to go through these quickly. Pray throughout the week. You should pray, and he gives you some specific ways that you can pray. People tell me all the time, I want to get better at praying. Well, here's some tools to help you in your prayer life throughout the week. You should pray that God would grant you an honest and good heart, that would hear and accept the Word, and that it would bear lasting fruit in your life. That He would make your heart soft and receptive to His Word, that your heart would delight in the truth of His Word more than riches and food, and that He would open your ears and help you to listen to and obey what He says, what He wants to say to you. Ask Him to speak to you in a very powerful and practical way, that He would cause you to change and grow to become more like Him. Ask Him to graciously illuminate your mind to understand what the Word means and how it applies to your life, that your heart would burn within you as the Scriptures are explained, and that you would not just be a hearer of the Word, but a doer of the Word. Guys, go to the source. You can. The veil was torn in two. The sacrifice of Christ and the righteousness of Christ allows you and I to come into the presence of holy God. Man, that's amazing. We don't need a priesthood between us. You can go before his throne of grace with boldness in your season of need, asking for more grace. Now, I will warn you. I will warn you. You guys have all heard the saying, what is it you should never pray for? Patience. I'm pretty sure my wife's been praying for that behind my back. I'm just going to go ahead and throw that out there. It happens, and we know why. Why do we not pray for patience? Because how does the Lord give us patience? Exactly. He gives us means which demands our patience so that we can grow those muscles, spiritual muscles that exemplify or bring that patience. That's why everyone says, don't pray for patience. Guys, if you pray that God would grant you an honest and good heart that would hear and accept the word and that it will bear lasting fruit in your life, he will answer. But he will answer in exactly the same way that he answers with patience. He will begin to confront you with all the limitations and all the reasons why your heart's been hardened. And what you're going to start to realize is, oh, okay, now what? Now what? Because that thing that's keeping me from the fulfillment of God's word, I really like that thing. That's really a part of who I am. That's a habit I've developed, or a part of who I am, or a personality that I'm comfortable with. And I've just begun to realize that's not what God has for me. Now what? Now what? That's what you need to be ready for. Pray throughout the week. Ask him and he will answer. But be ready when he answers. All right? That's all I'm going to say about that. The next one, confess your sin. Guys, I don't know how to reiterate this one most fully. This is one that's fallen on hard times. Right? We call sin other things. We deny that it's really sin. We justify, we hide it and think if others don't see it, somehow God doesn't see it. I love the account in the book of Joshua chapter 7 where you have a man named Achan, right? He was commanded, as were all of the children of Israel, do not take any of the plunder from this city as I'm going to give it into your hand. Do not take any for yourself, but bring it all into my temple. Okay. That's an amazing story, and you're familiar, right? Well, what was the city? Jericho. The first and only, at that time, fortified city that had never been defeated. And God's people come and march around it. God himself causes the walls to collapse. The people go in. They take the city. They're entering the promised land finally after the first generation that under Moses did not get to come in. It's amazing. But he says, this is my one command. Do not. Well, Achan is there in the city, and he sees some things, some clothing and other things, and he thinks, oh, I'd like that. I could use that. That would be good for me and my family. And so he takes it, and he hides it under his tent, and nobody in Israel has any idea. Right? Nobody in Israel has any idea. He was a successful sneak. He got away with it. He got away with it, and he got it under his tent, and nobody knew. And they go to do battle. They've just defeated the greatest city of their day. And suddenly they go to do battle against a town called Ai. And it's such a small, insignificant, undefended town that they don't even send up but a small portion of their army because, hey, we got this. And they got routed. And 21 Israelite men who were husbands, sons, and fathers died that day. They died. And Joshua goes and he starts tearing his clothes. God, why have you abandoned us? God, what's going on? And listen, I see this picture in our life. I see this picture in our life where we're always saying, God, I don't know why you're doing this. God, I don't know what's going on. God, what is the deal? Why are you doing this? And God says to Joshua what? Get up. Why are you laying on your face? There's sin in the camp. And under God's covenantal design of that time, we have the uniqueness that Israel, when there was sin in the camp, the nation suffered under it. Now we know under the new covenant that we ourselves suffer according to our own sins, although there is a familial nature of that a whole family can suffer when one person in that house is sinning, especially in a deceitful way. All of that to be said, you can't hide it from God. Achan He hid it from everybody. Joshua had no idea. The people had no idea. He probably didn't even have any idea of why 21 of his brothers got killed that day. But God made it clear shortly thereafter. Right? God knew what was under that tent. God saw him take it. So if you're sitting here and you're thinking, Pastor Phillip doesn't know, Miss Tanya doesn't know, Bonnie Gordon doesn't know, the other elders don't know, my Sunday school teacher doesn't know, my parents don't know, you are thinking wrongly, because that's not the point. And this is why that's important. If you think that you're going to come and find good and glorious and wonderful things in God's Word, if you think that He's going to answer good and wonderful and beautiful prayers that you're offering up to Him, and you're toting sin around, look with me at Psalm 66 real quick. People need to, I don't know that we ever see this rightly very much. There's so much confusion about prayer. So much confusion about prayer. I just want to say this ahead of time. I've said this from the pulpit, but if you haven't heard this, prayer is conditional. There's a conditionality to prayer. And we don't treat it that way. We think that, man, if I can get enough people praying, if I put this on Facebook and 10,000 people pray, surely God's going to hear. Because He can't hear one. He's going a little deaf in his older age. So we need more voices to ring that bell. That's not the picture of prayer. There's a conditionality to prayer. You need to understand that. In 1 Peter chapter 3, it says, husbands, if you're not treating your wives with understanding and gentleness, your prayer life is going to be hindered. Right? You can't pray in contrast to God's will and expect Him to answer just because He really likes you a lot. He's going to change His will to fit your desires. That's not how this works. It never has been. And there's a very specific reality, too, that we need to take into account, and it's found in verse 18. And the psalmist says very simply this: if I regard wickedness in my heart, the Lord will not hear. Guys, I don't know how else to say this. You can't hide it under your tent and think God's going to answer, even if it's a wonderful and good. You got to deal with the things that are separating you from God. Praise God, He's made the provision through the death of His Son for you to deal with it. For if you confess your sins, He is faithful and just to forgive you your sins and to cleanse you from that unrighteousness. He's made the provision, but we should never be one who would spit in the face of God's provision, that upon the death of His Son, we would then hold on to our sin that put Him upon the cross. That's the understanding we need to rightly have. And so, if you want to gain from the sermon, from your study, if you want these things and you're praying this prayer, you got to also be dealing with areas of sin. And guys, I know this is always a shocker. Now, some of you know me a little better. It doesn't shock you at all. But the first time I began talking about the fact that I have to confess my sin, that I have to fight against my sin, that my flesh is at odds with my soul, exactly the same way yours is, according to 1 Peter, that the spirit within me is in constant warfare and opposition to the desires of my flesh and mind. Guys, this is the reality for all of us. We're in that boat. I have to, in order to rightly divide and understand God's Word, this is an ongoing thing. And praise God, He's made provision for that, right? Through the study of His Word. It's revealing sin. It's revealing sin. Matthew is killing me every week. I'm serious. Since I did teaching through the book of James, I've not been this affected in my personal life and my personal views as I have been through the narrative accounts of Matthew. Through the study of God's Word, He's revealing things. Through the preaching of God's Word, He's revealing things. Guys, there are times, just a moment of confession and transparency, there are times when I'm up there preaching, and all of a sudden I'm saying it, I'm going, uh-oh. Oh, I got to work on that. I'm not doing well in that area. How did that creep in? Because when I was preparing this week, I think I was doing well, but man, I really messed that up this morning in my conversation with so-and-so or this and that. Guys, we have to deal with sin. We can't ignore it. We can't sweep it under the rug. God certainly did not. If ever there was a time when God would sweep your sin under the rug, it would have been that day when He crushed His only begotten Son because of your sin. If there was ever a time when He would have said, no big deal, It's just a little gossip. It's just a little white lie. It's just this or that. Or listen, Jesus didn't die for Hitler's sins. Jesus died for mine and your sins. Right? We don't get to judge sin with those types of statement that, hey, I'm not perfect, but, it's not like I'm Hitler. No. That's unbiblical, bad theology. You need to understand the fullness of the gospel in that. So we have to deal with our sin in order to do that. Next one. And I hope these are helpful. I hope these are giving you things that you can be putting into practice tonight. Preparing this week through these things. These are just straight up, do this so that you might know and experience this. The next one. Reduce your media intake. We touched on this. I'm going to be quick with it. Look. He gives us some stats. I think they're old stats. I'm afraid of what they are now. But the average person in America spends about 4 hours a day on screen time. 4 hours a day. I think, and he says it's actually about 9.5 when you take into account every other component of text message, phone time, computer time, TV time, movie time, those kind of things. It's super increased. And here's the problem. I would just say, let's take the minimum, 4 hours a day. Can you just think, what if you just carved out, let's start this week, carve out 30 minutes a day away from those things and focus it on the other things we've just looked at. Change your life. I promise. It will change your life. Start there and then go from there. You should be able to get your media intake significantly down. And if you're one of the 9.5 or more hours, cut out 9 hours today, right? Lower those things for more fruitful things. Everything in our life is always a choice, or view it as a transaction. I'm going to give into this because I expect to get certain things out of it. And understand this. I'm not saying that, hey, you are a sinner if you watch a TV show or you like to see the news at night or you watch YouTube or those things. That's not at all what I'm saying. What I am saying is if you find yourself one of those who are struggling with the other points, you can come to this one and know very quickly this is probably why. This is a good area that will give you greater ability to do the other things. So please reduce your media intake. Another part of that, and we understand this, we speak of it in positive terms. I can't tell you how many times people have come to me and said, hey, Pastor, you would have a whole lot more people at your church if you preached a shorter sermon and used a lot more props and videos and things. And then they go on to explain to me the reason is in this generation, because of screen time, people can't pay attention for more than about 16 minutes. The problem with that mindset is since when did we begin to conform the church to the world? And so the point I'm making is if you know that your screen time is producing in you an inability to pay attention to the spoken word because you're used to big flashing things and other things happening, then that should be a massive red flag for you to start reducing screen time, because ultimately over the course of what is your eternal life, what is more important? That 30 minutes of entertainment or 4.5 hours of entertainment or whatever it is, versus your ability to retain and understand the Word of God, the will of God for your life. I just want to put before you at least a mindset that starts viewing the transaction that you are choosing every day rightly. Because that's what you're doing. You are choosing a transaction. There's nothing you have for this life that's more valuable than your time. And you are trading your time in for something every day. And I would submit to you that a study of God's Word, a study of Ecclesiastes, a study of Matthew, a study of Song of Songs, I don't care what you pick, it's all profitable. Right? He's told us that. A study of God's Word is a much greater transaction of your most valuable asset, which is time. Is the point that's being made here. And if you're not, and he says, listen, if you're not careful, watching TV will turn you into a lazy listener who just sits there in the couch taking in information who doesn't have to do anything with it. I mean, that's really kind of why we watch TV. I just need some mindless time. Right? That's true. And listen, this is not to say that's not okay. But when it becomes the habit that you're doing constantly and continually, mindless time becomes your greatest ability. And then you come in and you hear someone saying, think on this, meditate on this, think deeply on these things. And you go, I don't know how to do that anymore. I've trained my mind to not do those things. And now I don't know how to flip that script or change that switch come Sunday morning, Wednesday night, Sunday night, early in the morning when you're studying. So there are dangers that come outside of it as well. Here we go. We're moving into new territory tonight. Page 43. Okay. No one throw anything at me. We've established the importance. So when I get to this next one, you'll understand why it's important. Plan ahead and schedule your week around the ministry of the Word. Again, this is not the general thought process of American church. It's just not, right? We look at church as, man, I know when that schedule is, and if I can show up on time, that's about all that they should expect from me. And what I want to submit to you is, if the Word is that important, if the Word is the lamp unto your feet and the light unto your path, if it is the mind of God, the will of God being established and displayed for you, then would it not be, if it is the food for your soul, then would it not be important enough for you to start making plans in such a way that facilitate it to the fullest extent? And I think there's so much practical in this, but I think there's also just basic common sense, right? Basic common sense in this. That whatever it is that we see as valuable, we pursue. And this is what I want us to understand. Listen to this. Before we get into this, I would just say, we talked about this last night in a different terminology in our young adults group. Understanding, last night our title was Secular Creep. How secular thinking has crept into the church unawares. And we talked about the little basement windows that seem to have pockets that just flood in and then create these massive cavities of this. One of the big ones that our young adults were detailing and working through last night were understanding the unimportance of the church and the insufficiency of Scripture for all things that we do and pursue and are. And one of the ways it shows itself is, for example, when I talk to people who are telling me, hey, I was offered this job and I'm just really asking you, Pastor, to pray for me that I might know God's will. I want to be wise in leading my family. And my first question to them is, well, is there a good church in the area? I don't know. I haven't checked on that yet. Well, let's check on that before we talk about anything else. And they look at me like, wait a second. They're offering me a promotion at work. They're offering me better pay and better benefits and better this and better that. They're offering me, and you're telling me that if there's not a sound and good local church there, that I shouldn't take it? I talk to people and I tell them, I'm like, guys, we've had couples who, desperate for the Word of God, have been driving an hour to get here. And within a few months of them doing that, my response to them is, you guys need to start looking for a house. Yeah, but you don't understand, Pastor. Houses are more expensive in Martin County than they are in where I'm at right now. And my response is, well, I'm glad I'm not depending on you to be the one that provides for it. Let's begin praying and pursuing to see if the Lord might not have that, because that's within His will. Let's remove, if you've got credit card debt or other things that are opposing, and let's start removing that and preparing you to be able to do this. And it's amazing how the Lord responds. I'm just going to tell you, one of the things I've learned about the Lord in my own life is how faithful He is and how quickly His faithfulness will display. I've seen people in abject ruin who begin pursuing the Lord with their whole heart, and within 6 months their life is absolutely turned around. I've seen that time and time and time again. Now, looking to that 6-month window and not seeing where it's going to go, oftentimes it's, I can't do this. But when they do, the Lord responds so quickly. It's amazing. Guys, make this a priority. He says this. I'm just going to read from him so I don't get in too much trouble. Too often, school, work reports, and other activities take precedence over going to church. They make the mistake of letting their time be that which is ordered by the world, which views the weekend as a time to relax, to play sports, to stay up late, and to sleep in. For Christians, however, Sunday should be the most important day of the week. You should try to schedule your work, activities, get-togethers, and vacations around church. You should live by the principle that Sunday morning starts Saturday night. Here are some practical suggestions on how to prioritize the Lord's Day. Make it a habit to be home on Saturday night. Don't make big plans to be out Saturday night doing other things. Make it a habit to be home on Saturday night. Be careful not to do, watch, or read anything that will cause lingering distractions in your mind the next day. Number 3, get things ready on Saturday night to alleviate the typical Sunday morning rush. Lay out clothes, set the table, write the offering check, stock the diaper bag, etc. Number 4, get a good night's sleep so that you can be sharp and energetic to worship and serve God. It's hard to listen when you're nodding off. I won't say anything. I will say, I have a bird's eye view. I see. Eat a simple but adequate breakfast that will hold you until lunch. It's difficult to hear over the grumbling of your stomach. Work together with the other members of your family to get ready and seek to establish and maintain a godly atmosphere on the way to church. Listen to music, sing, and pray together. Okay, I just got to pause there for a minute. I'll never forget when Kahuna came here from Snowbird and spoke at our church. And I'd never heard anyone just call it out like this. And he said from the pulpit, he said, there's so many of you here today that Sunday morning you did nothing but please Satan the whole way here, and you get out of your car and put halos on to walk in these doors. Right? And he went into great detail, because at first I thought, well, he's not talking about me. Then he went into detail, and I thought, oh, I have done that. And he talked about when you're in a mad rush and when you're trying to get in hectic and you and your wife or you and your husband are fighting and the kids and this and that, and you're just angry and distracted and sinning. But you open the door and the smile comes on because people are going to see you at that moment. And remember the mindset. Who's watching? So I think this is really a great intentional means for you to prepare yourself and not have that lingering. One of the things, and I'll just tell you, the deacons, my wife and others are super careful. They protect me on Sunday morning. They protect me. They don't let people come up to me before the sermon and blast me with something about the paint color or with really anything. And the reason is they don't want me to get up there and be distracted in those moments when I'm prepared to teach God's Word. And so they diligently, so if you ever see them, I mean, literally, they can tell you one of the deacons' things that they do and that they learn is one of them will come out and kind of run just a little bit of interference to make sure that if there's someone coming wanting to hit me with the big problem of the day, they get me after the service. That's why I stand at the back. I don't want to not hear it. I just don't want to be distracted with what I'm about to do. And so that's a super important component that I would encourage you all in your own lives. Don't show up here seething, fuming, mad at your spouse or at someone else and then expect to just turn that off by the time that the pulpit mic goes hot. So, important stuff. Arrive at church 10 minutes early instead of 10 minutes late. I remember my boss telling me that 10 minutes early was almost late. Is there anyone else here that's ever heard that? Is there anyone here under 40 that's heard that? Okay, guys, that we got to bring that back. That was a good mindset. It was a righteous mindset in regards to the things of work, and it's more so a righteous mindset in regard to the things of the Lord's Day. It's not wrong it's not wrong to have moments. Listen, you blow a tire on the way here, man, that kind of stuff is going to happen. There's no doubt. I remember me coming in one day, someone pulled out in front of me. I literally almost got in a wreck. I came in and told John, and he started praying twice as much because I'm like, if that ever happens, you're up. He's like, oh, let me pray. Let me pray. Right? But that kind of stuff is going to happen. There's going to be days when you're sick or the kids are sick or something happens or as you're going out, you spill coffee and you got to go in and change. Try to mitigate that to a minimal. Right? Labor, don't let that be the normal for your life. Make it something that's not normal in your life. Arrive at church 10 minutes early instead of 10 minutes late, so you have enough time to find a parking spot, drop the kids off in the nursery or their Sunday school class, get a cup of coffee, visit with your friends, and find a seat. These are just good practices that will help you. It will help you. It's a priority issue. When you fail to plan ahead, page 44, Sunday morning ends up becoming a chaotic crisis. And by the time you get to church, you're frustrated and frazzled, and your heart is in no condition to receive the word. But when you plan well and are able to arrive in a relaxed, leisurely way, you'll be in a much more receptive frame of mind. Next one, be consistent in church attendance. I didn't pay him to put this in here, right? Again, this goes back to the realities. Not only is it a command, and he points it out from Hebrews chapter 10, verses 23 and 25. It says, let us hold fast the confession of our hope without wavering, for he who promised is faithful, and let us consider how to stimulate one another to love and good deeds, not forsaking our own assembling together, as is the habit of some, but encouraging one another, and all the more as you see the day drawing near. Guys, we know the term ecclesia in the Greek simply means the assembly, the assembling. Guys, it's hard to have an assembly if there ain't nobody assembling. I don't know how else to say that. You got to have the both. You got to have the one to accomplish the other. So don't forsake the church. And then he goes on and explains why. I won't read the quote from David Eby. Yeah, I will. It's his quote. This is what he writes, a common frustration of pastors. I won't say this is my frustration. This is just his frustration. He says, you grieve over flaky folks who don't take preaching very seriously, who will miss services with seemingly no conscience pangs at almost any flimsy excuse. You mourn for a generation who are red-eyed from Nintendo and TV, bloated with soccer, scouts, hot tubs, and designer vacations, but they are bored with the Word of God. It's a tragedy. And honestly, I do want to say this just so you know, as your pastor, I feel extremely blessed. I don't struggle with that within our church body. I do struggle when I grieve over the way the world views the Word outside of these walls on a Sunday. But you all, I just want to be clear, I don't struggle with that. But that's a reality that sometimes we're insulated from here that we forget exists across the majority of the culture and landscape. And we should grieve over that. We should see that as a mission necessity within our own community. He says this, though, and this is good. Regular attendance in church is an aid to listening well, especially when your pastor is preaching through the book of the Bible or a special series. He says this, patchy attendance breaks the continuity of a sermon series. It's like skipping a chapter in a book or going to the restroom in the middle of a movie. You miss key information that is critical to understanding what is going on. If you have to miss church for some legitimate reason, it is always a good idea to get a CD copy of the message or download it on the internet and those things. Listen, we have it. It's on our website. You can catch up on anything you miss. Many people do. I'm so thankful that we're able to provide that in our technology that we do have, because I know there are reasons every week, legitimate, righteous reasons where people can't be here. And we are pleased to provide that. I was worried that when we first started providing it, people were going to sit home because it's easier to have a cup of coffee in your pajamas and listen to the sermon than to come and participate. But that hasn't been the case. It's been a wonderful tool for people when they legitimately, righteously miss the service. So use that, right? It's available. Don't be behind. Don't show up trying to figure out, why is he talking about this in Matthew 17 when you missed the last 2 weeks in Matthew 16 and laid the foundation for Matthew 17. You don't have to. It's available. Go to church with a humble, teachable, expectant heart. Page 45. I love this one. Come to church with a spirit of anticipation. You know, I've said this multiple times, and we've had some rough seasons in my role of ministry. We've had some rough seasons around here. We'll have some more. I've had some really, really worrisome Saturday nights, and I've had some rough Mondays. But I've never had a bad Lord's Day in this church. Not one time. Showing up, ready to preach the word, to participate with the people. It's been amazing. Every week I look forward to it and long. And it keeps me, when Saturday's not going well, it keeps me from going too far down that train of thought, because I think, oh, tomorrow's Sunday. If I do my labor today and other things, tomorrow's going to be great. Really, that's the mindset. So anticipation, I love that, the way he words that. Come to church with a spirit of anticipation, fully expecting God to speak to you through his word in ways that will make a lasting difference in your life. The psalmist expresses this longing in prayer in Psalm 119 and verse 18. He says, open my eyes, I love this, that I may behold wonderful things from your law. That's a whole different mindset in regard to God's word. So many today in this generation, and probably all generations, so many are saying, I don't want to know that because then it's going to hold me back. They see God's word as a ball and chain that keeps them from doing fun and wonderful things, instead of seeing the law of God as that which is delightful and wonderful and pleasing and great. So it's important. I lost my page. It's important to come with an expectant heart. Jay Adams describes the manner in which we should approach the service. He says, when you go to hear a sermon, you must be concerned about one thing. What does God have to say to me? Focus on God. You know, my wife and we've been talking constantly in our discipleship. You gotta take your spouse or your boss or whoever the person is that's creating this struggle, take them out of the equation and focus on the Lord. Focus on the Lord. Take them out of the equation and focus on the Lord, because that's really what it comes down to. Your relationship with the Lord is the primary thing. Bring that to your Sunday morning. You only have one concern Sunday morning, and it's not how cold is it? It's not how you feel. It's not who did or didn't speak to you. It's not did you get your parking spot. It's not was someone sitting in your seat. It's not any of the normal things that Satan uses to distract us so well. It is simply, I am here to hear God's word that I might learn. Focus on him. See, preaching is a transaction, not merely between yourself and the preacher, but between yourself and God. The preacher is the means to that end. Go expecting to hear a word from God that, when obeyed, will change your life. That's such an amazing truth, isn't it? Such an amazing truth. I had to learn that through apologetics, a study of how to rightly defend God's word. And this was such an important lesson for me, because there's so easily that I can slip into personality things, right? So easily you can slip into, well, I'm a better arguer. Right? And that's never what that's intended. And I remember reading this book, and the author, who's a pastor, said this. He said, when you are in disagreement over God's word, and one or possibly both of you are wrong, you are not arguing with each other, but you are arguing with God. Because it's his word that you are misaligning, it's his word that you are missing, and it's his word that you are arguing over. I just remember thinking, okay, I've got to really rethink my whole view of this, right? I can't agree to disagree over things from God's word. I don't have that freedom anymore, having understood rightly that one of us, if not both of us, when we disagree over peripheral things like eschatology or continuationism or you fill in the blank, that those things are you and I, and one of us, or possibly both of us, are arguing not with each other, but with God, when the argument stems or centers around God's word. So, super important that we see rightly what is being done or said. So many people say, man, I just want to hear a word from God. I got one for you every Sunday. This week's going to be Matthew 17. I can tell you where it's going to be and what we're going to be dealing with. Next one, worship with all your heart. This is probably where we're going to have to end today, because I want to spend a little time with it. Worship with all your heart. Now, in that, I think worship is more all-encompassing than the author gives us here, and I think he knows that. He's focusing very specifically, when he says worship with all your heart, on singing. Right? He's focusing specifically on worship and song and praises and those things. And this is what he says. The most critical moments for the listener are those in and around and leading up to the sermon itself. And actually, he's not. He focuses on all components. My bad on that. Songs and prayers specifically. He says this, songs and prayers serve as a prelude to the preaching. The service is designed to set the table for the word. And the climax of the entire service is the sermon. You speak to God through the songs and prayers, and then he speaks to you through the sermon. Guys, that's an amazing mindset. And I can tell you, he's spot on. I can tell you that when Matt works to choose the songs, wherever he's over here, he's thinking through, and that's why you'll hear things like, this is our song of confession. Here's our song of adoration, right? There's very specific things going into the flow of the service in such a way that these songs are intended to be doing work ahead of time, in preparation, but also in opportunity. In opportunity. And this is what I want us to kind of focus on. Look, he gives us some suggestions. Number one, sing enthusiastically. Sing enthusiastically. Do I have to tell you what that means? Turn with me to Colossians 3. I'll tell you why it says that. Turn with me to Colossians 3. We could look at a lot of different places. This is as good as any. Colossians 3, in the few moments we have left, we're just winding down. I mean, we have this amazing exhortation in Colossians chapter 3 of how to live life as believers. I mean, that's basically what you have. If you have been raised with Christ, keep seeking the things above. Verse 1 goes into this whole list of putting on and taking off evil practices, putting on good practices, those things. It goes on, bearing with one another, forgiving, put on love, which is the perfect bond of unity. Verse 14. Verse 15, let the peace of Christ rule in your hearts, to which indeed you were called in one body, and be thankful. Let the word of Christ richly dwell within you, with all wisdom, teaching and admonishing one another. That's your jobs. That's the body of Christ. You all are to be doing this, and one of the ways you do that is with psalms and hymns and spiritual songs, singing with thankfulness in your hearts unto God. When you sing in the body of Christ, on a Sunday morning or a Sunday night or at any time, when you do that as the body gathered, you are singing to one another. That means if the person next to you can't hear you, you're not doing your job rightly. Right? I don't know how to say that. If the person next to you can't hear you, you are not fulfilling Colossians 3 verses 16 rightly. Sing enthusiastically, because it ain't about you. I don't care how you sound. I just want to hear you. Right? That's the point. That's the beauty. I'm already singing in my car all the songs that we're singing on Sunday. I'm singing them, humming them to myself. And guys, I'm a horrible singer. So I show up on Sunday morning and I'm so thankful that someone's going to drown me out and join together. I'm going to hear the words of God, the songs that we're singing, coming from a multitude of people surrounding me in fellowship. I look forward to it. I long for it. I love it. It is a high point of my week that I don't have to listen just to me, but I get all of you, my friends and family, joining together and singing with me praises to our King. Man, that's a good day. That's a good time. So we need to see that rightly. The other thing he says is thinking about the words and considering them personal praises or requests. I just want to read a couple of highlights from some of the songs we've sang in the last 4 weeks. Because I don't know if we do this right. I don't know if we really... I've always thought as we're singing, are we thinking about what we're singing? Have you ever thought about it? John, I know there's one. Do you remember the one you always bring up that we sing and you're like, ooh. He always talks. I know I put him on the spot. That was my bad. But there's several songs. But there's several songs and I think, oh, am I doing that? And if I'm not doing that, what is it? I surrender all. Yeah, I surrender some. I surrender some. That's what he always says. And I'm like, John, I surrender all or I surrender some. I mean, but we're up there singing, right? Think about this just for a minute. You're uttering out loud, I am doing this unto God, and you're not. Man, that's big. Let me just read a few of these. Here's one that I think ties right in very well with what we've been studying. Speak, O Lord. Speak, O Lord. Listen to this. Take your truth, plant it deep in us, shape and fashion us in your likeness. Teach us, Lord, full obedience, holy reverence, true humility. Cause our faith to rise and cause our eyes to see your majestic love and authority. Listen, help us grasp the heights of your plans for us, truths unchanged from the dawn of time that will echo through eternity. Guys, think about what it is that's being promised. That's just Scripture. That's just the Word of God, the promise and provision and faithfulness and goodness of God. And we're singing praises back to Him for those things. Man, that's a good day. Here's one. Be thou my vision. Be thou my vision, O Lord of my heart. Not be all else to me, save that thou art. So if you're thinking, I can't believe he just told me I need to show up to church 10 minutes early. That's just crazy, radical thinking, and that's just not, no, you're singing those things. Not be all else to me, save that you, Jesus, art. Right? If you've sang that song out loud, you better start practicing it. You better start pursuing it. Waking or sleeping, thy presence, my light. Riches I heed not, nor man's empty praise. Thou mine inheritance now and always. Man, those are strong lyrics. Those are sanctifying, life-changing, confronting, conforming lyrics. Here's one. This one's, man, it's amazing. I didn't put the title on this. The Mysteries of the Cross I Cannot Comprehend. What's that one? Jesus, thank you. We just sang it. In this, in the middle of it, he says, your blood has washed away my sin. Jesus, thank you. The Father's wrath completely satisfied. Jesus, thank you. Once your enemy, now seated at your table. Jesus, thank you. By your perfect sacrifice, I've been brought near. Your enemy, you've made your friend. There's more theology in that song than most people claiming Christ can carry a sentence about. And we get to sing that. That's good. Last one. Before you I kneel. Before you I kneel, my master and maker, to offer the work of my hands. Listen to this. For this is the day you've given your servant. I will rejoice and be glad. Not, I wish it would have been a better day. Not, I can't believe the day I've had. Lord, you gave me today. Today, by your sovereign hand, you gave it to me, and I will rejoice and be glad. If it was a bad day, I'm going to bring it to you in confession and praise you for your forgiveness. And if it was a good day, I'm going to bring it to you, praising you for your strength and goodness that provided that for me. I will rejoice and be glad for the strength I have to live and breathe. And we take that for granted until we don't have it very well anymore. For each skill your grace has given me, for the needs and opportunities that will glorify your great name. Before you I kneel and ask for your goodness to cover the work of my hands, for patience and peace to shape all my labor, your grace for the thorns in my path. Before you we kneel, our master and maker, establish the work of our hands, and order our steps to seek first your kingdom in every small and great task. Man, that is, if we could take just that last sentence and start to strive every moment of every day to live it out, think about what that would do in this community. Think about what that would do in our own lives, in our families, in our workplaces, in this church body. Right? Think about just that one sentence. If we would take and truly make it our prayer, before you we kneel, our master and maker, establish the work of our hands, and you, O God, order our steps to seek first your kingdom in every small and great task. We don't think that way, and we need to. It's good to. So I put these before you. I encourage you to read them. We will come back and pick this up next week. Thankful for you all being here. Let me pray, and we will be dismissed. Don't forget to go get your kids and then come back and hang out. Lord, we're so thankful for your grace, for your provision, for your kindness, for your goodness, that you've given us all of these things. And Lord, that you've put them in your word, that we might know your will, know your mind, know your plans, and that we then might order our lives accordingly. Lord, I thank you for your church. I thank you specifically for Community Baptist Church, for the family that you have given me here, for the roles and tasks and gifts that you've given each of us, that we might use them for one another here within this body. Lord, you are good, and we are thankful for you. And I ask all this in your Son Christ's name. Amen.